At a distance away from the capital that would take the average traveler 3 days to cross, the Sorceress Kingdom's army could already be sighted. This report landed in Zanac's hands. To receive the Sorceress Kingdom's army's attack, the entire army of the kingdom had mobilized under Zanac's command. On the plains about half a day's worth of marching away from the capital, the kingdom's army had already established a front upon receiving news that the Sorceress Kingdom was invading from the west. According to their battle plans, they were to wait for the Sorceress Kingdom's army there. The front was built upon a wide bit of road that was locked down for this purpose. If the Sorceress Kingdom's army were to continue on their current straight trajectory, this would be the most effective. However, if the Sorceress Kingdom were to change their direction of approach, there would be a need to form a new front. Though they were worried about that possibility, the reports all indicated that the Sorceress Kingdom was beelining for them. It appeared as though they did not have to worry about that possibility coming true. Yet no one was rejoicing because of it. The kingdom's army that will be facing against the Sorceress Kingdom's army this time around was comprised of levies from the neighboring nobles, the capital's militia, and able-bodied men drafted from the refugees. It would not be incorrect to call this army the kingdom's last hope. In total, there were over 400,000 men. To have formed such a large army was something worthy of praise, yet the reality was that they were scraping at the bottom of the barrel. Not many had suitable equipment, a lot of people only had a club. Even under this situation, morale was high. However, the reason for that was purely because they had the spirit of a cornered beast. They knew the extent of the cruelty the Sorceress Kingdom had displayed, and thus took up arms through the sheer force of will to protect that which they hold dear. If their courage was to take a hit in any shape or form, the kingdom's army would surely instantaneously collapse. The size of the army was a weapon in and of itself. The long lines of soldiers alone gave off an overwhelming pressure without them doing anything at all. So then, for what purpose was the Sorceress Kingdom's army advancing straight towards this army of 400,000? Even those who were not too well versed in battle tactics would know that facing such a large army head-on was not the best strategy. For the Sorceress Kingdom, their best strategy would have been to do nothing. They had an army full of the undead, which did not require supplies at all. In comparison, the kingdom's 400,000 strong force was akin to a gigantic yet starving beast. As long as they managed to completely surround them and apply pressure inwards, this giant beast would soon doom itself by starving to its death. Yet the Sorceress Kingdom's army marched in a straight line, destroying everything in their path. He knew of the Sorcerer King's firm grasp of the bigger picture, so it was hard to imagine that they had done so with no purpose in mind at all. The Sorceress Kingdom simply had confidence in their imminent victory. To something like the Sorceress Kingdom, this was not reckless behavior at all. To those who could defeat an army of 200,000 men with a single spell, this army of theirs could be wiped out with the use of only 2 spells. Of course, Zannac, as the general, did not want to believe that that could happen. However, the people, especially nobles, who believed in that notion were not exactly a minority either. He understood why they had suggested that their forces should be split into groups. Though they could fall one by one, they also avoided the possibility of their entire army succumbing to a single spell. But they could not do that. Due to the devastating loss they had experienced during the Battle of the Cat's Plains, as well as the current invasion by the Sorceress Kingdom, not many noblemen who had the skills to command such a large number of soldiers and cavalry were left. Splitting their forces would not create smaller armies. This force of 400,000 soldiers would suddenly turn into 400,000 commoners instead. It was precisely because they had this many men gathered, this many comrades, in one place that people had the courage to face the Sorceress Kingdom. They had been manning this front for 2 days now. A lot of time had been eaten up by the preparation this many men required. After both sides had set up their formations, the Sorceress Kingdom's army had adopted a prideful attitude that said loud and clear, "We gave you just enough time to prepare." Their forces numbered around 10,000, comprising 3 to 4 types of undead. This was a minuscule number in the face of 400,000 men. However, in terms of individual strength, the Sorceress Kingdom's army undoubtedly held an overwhelming advantage against them. "Your Highness. I know." Zannac gave a prompt reply to the Minister of Military Affairs. The minister's movements were stiff, almost comical at times, due to his unfamiliarity with the armor he wore. But Zannac was not a pot to call the kettle black. He was wearing what used to be Gazeth's armor, one of the treasures of the kingdom. Zannac knew that it did not suit him at all. He was far from Gazeth's league. But Zannac was thankful for this magically enchanted armor. These past few days, Zannac had been packing on the pounds due to his stress-eating habits. If it weren't for the armor's enchanted nature, he would have had to request a blacksmith to add an inch to the waist area. "Bring forth my horse." A steed was brought forth to Zannac's large tent by a knight following his order. It took Zannac quite a bit of effort to get on his favorite horse, which did not look too kindly to Zannac. He did not take any bodyguards along with him as he rode out of the front and towards the Sorceress Kingdom's army. Even if he brought bodyguards along, if the Sorcerer King wanted to kill him, bodyguards would be completely useless. They could not serve as deterrents at all. That was why riding solo was effectively a demonstration to the onlookers of his courage. If he were to be killed while riding solo, it would serve to damage the Sorcerer King's public image. The hero of Re-Estize has a nice ring to it. Zanac reached the midpoint between the two armies with no obstacles at all. He activated a magic item to amplify his voice. I am the prince of the kingdom of Re-Estize, Zannac Valley Nagan Ryle Vasilv. I wish to seek an audience with His Majesty the Sorcerer King. Zannac did not plan to fight a battle of wits against the Sorcerer King. Things had already come to a point where that was completely meaningless. He just wanted to find out what kind of a thought process would have led the Sorcerer King to do what he had done. Ainz surveyed the front his army had formed from a three-sided tarpaulin tent. Due to the fact that the Sorcerer's Kingdom's army was comprised of undead beings that did not require food resupplies, the front they had formed was much smaller than what a conventional army would have. From an objective perspective, there was no need to establish a front at all, and some had even suggested this to him. However, Ainz believed that front building was a valuable experience to gain too. Actually, from the several fronts they had formed already, the one in front of him looked to be a lot sturdier than what they had at the start. At first, these fronts were formed with the aid of Mare's magic, but due to a specific reason, Mare had been relegated to simply watching the soldiers build the front at Ainz's side. Aura was also watching the soldiers on the side, but it appeared that she was only observing her own servants. No matter if it was front building or tents, magic could always produce an outcome of higher quality. However, due to the same reason as above, Ainz had ordered this tent that was currently being used as their mobile headquarters, to be transported to this location through physical means. It might be a good idea to leave all future civil engineering tasks to Mare. Amongst the populace of the Sorcerer's Kingdom, there were many races of demi-humans and heteromorphs that were adept at digging tunnels. It would be a good idea to make them subordinate to Mare. That said, Albedo or someone else might have also had this idea and put it into action already. If someone had done so already, then the relevant documentation for this should have already been perused by Ainz. There was a need for him to ask Albedo about this in a roundabout way later. Was she being tacit? Albedo, who should have been working hard to establish the front, had returned with Cocytus. Ainz Sama. It appears as though the humans have sent an envoy. How shall we proceed? Not a messenger to declare the start of the battle. Prepare a reception. Prepare the receptive drinks as well. As Albedo began to prepare the table, chairs, and such, a man wearing full plate armor on horseback entered Ainz's line of sight. Ainz recognized the armor worn by that man. I think that's Gaz Astronov's armor. Is this man the vice warrior captain? He's quite different from the descriptions I've heard. The envoy stopped between the two armies and started yelling his introduction. I am the prince of the kingdom of Re-Estize, Zannac Valley Nagan Ryle Vasilv. I wish to seek an audience with His Majesty the Sorcerer King. He could hear him clearly even from this distance. He must have used some kind of magic item. What should we do, Ainz Sama? If he is not here to declare the start of the battle, then it would be a waste of time to converse with him. Shall we initiate the battle as is? No, Albedo, we cannot do that. The opponent desires to have a battle of wits with Ainz Sama. If we rejected him outright, it would reflect negatively on the people's impression of Ainz Sama's magnanimity. What value do rumors hold? Albedo sneered. They are dead men walking. What good are rumors that fall on no ears? Ainz was not too keen on fighting a battle of wits or whatever. Surely the royalty of this country would not lose out to him in anything other than combat prowess. Still. Albedo. Have you forgotten about the possibility that the rumor could be transmitted through magic? I'm terribly sorry. I will go then. The royalty of our opposition came alone. If I were not to do the same, it would not reflect well on us. Are you sure it will be alright, Ainz Sama? I have no idea. Or, if I were to be brainwashed or mind-controlled, you should use your world-class item to protect me. Ainz's usual world-class item was in Nazark storage, so if Aura used depiction of nature and society on him, he would be trapped in it. This way, even if he was brainwashed, they could not kidnap him through teleportation or other similar methods. Understood. Ainz replied to Aura and left the front on a sole leader. It was worth noting that after Ainz had practiced horse riding, he looked adequate while doing it. However, because he was not too apt at it, to prevent making a blunder in front of the two armies, Ainz still chose to ride as sole leader to be on the safe side. The other party was waiting for Ainz next to his horse, so Ainz also got off the sole leader, upon arriving at his destination. No matter how bad this was going to get for him, Ainz steeled himself to do to others what they had done to him.